name's Ash Mahoney. I'm a podiatrist. I've been in private practice for 15 years, treating everybody from young kids right the way through to the country's best athletes. Okay, so kids' feet differ quite a lot, especially the younger children. Younger children as young as sort of 2, 3, all the way through to 8-year-old. This is when the foot is changing so rapidly. There's so much growth going on, both linear as well as fascial, muscle, bone, joint growth. Obviously all the growth plates are still open through these ages. So this is the maximal time of change for kids and their feet. So as a podiatrist who's seen both the positives and negatives associated with children's feet, it's the most important time. If we don't take care of our kids' feet now, we're actually setting up problems that will happen into the future. This is not just what I think, this is evidence-based. A longitudinal study done by Rao et al. Examined thousands of kids' feet and showed that the earlier that we put kids into a traditional shoe, the more problems they actually did have with things like longitudinal arch development, as well as other gait parameters. So not only is it an important time for growth, but it's an important time for footwear. When we look at the biomechanics of this age, there's a lot more movement going on, there's a lot of growth going on, there's a lot of problems that can come about from this period of time onwards. And the foot being so soft and malleable, if we decide to put in a shoe which doesn't allow growth, or which isn't well fitted, or in some cases has a big chunky heel on it, we're actually changing how the biomechanics of the foot works. So it's definitely the most important time of gait. It's not the only, the most important time of a foot's life, but it's not the only time where we'd like to take care of our kids' feet. Obviously, if we can set the right patterns in place at a young age, then as kids get older and older, they can make the shoe choices for themselves and they'll make more correct choices. Certainly nowadays, with the study done by Caleb Wagner at the University of Sydney, we have a systematic review of the scientific evidence to show us what having a heeled shoe, a traditional shoe, does to a child's foot when compared to a barefoot scenario. And unfortunately, the results are not very pretty. I've seen as a podiatrist over the last 15 years, I've seen both the positives and negatives of having kids fitted into very stable shoes who don't need it, and other kids who are fitted into less stable shoes who actually do need more stability. And I can tell you this, watching them grow over those 15 years, we itself are creating problems for these kids, because what we do know from the scientific literature is having a thicker heel underneath a kid's shoe does a few things. Firstly, it increases their stride length. So that means they're actually taking bigger strides. What this does is when the child takes a bigger stride, they're more than likely going to land on their heel when they're walking. So this enlarged heel strike has a myriad of changes that go up the kinetic chain that are negative to the human body, such as increasing ankle range of motion, increasing knee flexion range of motion during stance, increasing hip flexion range of motion. Increasing these range of motions during the initial and mid phases of stance puts a great amount of stress on a growing body. So that one factor alone, or increasing stride length from adding heel height, is enough for me to take this very seriously. But the second factor is not only does it increase stride length, but it decreases stride rate as associated with that. So this is actually having massive changes on the sagittal plane of kids walking. As I said, this is systematic review done at the University of Sydney, so it's not just my opinion, and it's the opinion now of a lot of podiatrists around the country that we do need to be decreasing the heel height of a lot of our children's shoes. Not only that, but also the weight. And these has massive impacts, not only on pronation, but all the way up the kinetic chain into the lower back and back. The key reasons I refer patients to minimalist shoes, especially the VIVOBAREFOOT shoe, is because it mimics as close as possible an actual barefoot scenario without the environmental dangers of actually going barefoot. Such as, you know, in today is actually a 36-degree day in Brisbane, and if you were going barefoot on the surfaces that are around us at the moment, you'd be getting quite burnt feet. So the Vivo Barefoot is a beautiful option that, that has a very minimalistic pitch, obviously very low heel heights, that does not affect the stride length and stride rate parameters associated with other shod wearing. Not only do I recommend Vivo Barefoot to most of my patients, especially my pediatric patients, but also my adult walking patients and even into some running patients, but I would recommend them for my own kids. In fact, both of my kids do wear Vivo Barefoot shoes. My youngest being 3 and my oldest being 6, and we're now using that range as our preeminent school shoe of choice.